Out of order.
Mr. Speaker.
Out of order.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I want to... Mr. Speaker, can I be heard in silence? I want to start by saying this, Mr. Speaker, that...
Did I hear you correct?
Yes.
What did you say again?
I said, could I be heard in silence?
Okay, that is a reasonable request,
Yes.
and you will be heard in silence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to support the...
Member for Muranga. Member for Muranga. You know you are a fairly senior member of this House. You do not have a card, and therefore you are not going to speak. It is not out of order. Any approaches will not be accepted.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed, Honorable Baya.
Yes, I hope they'll keep my time so that I start now. Mr. Speaker, I would like to support the budget and thank the committee, the Budget and Preparations Committee, for a good job. But I would like to say that when the budget process starts, every Kenyan is hopeful that the budget that is coming in will transform their lives. We have a budget that I am very sure that if properly implemented, and if the reasoning and the thought that went into it is implemented as expected, then this budget can actually transform this country. There are many sections this time in this budget that have benefited, and we have huge disbursements or allocations in education. The education sector, Mr. Speaker, is one of the biggest beneficiaries. We would like to see this budget transform the education sector. Mr. Speaker, I would like to draw your attention that there is usually infrastructure fund, and there is infrastructure fund that has been put in the education budget, both for primary school and secondary and universities. But Mr. Speaker, we still have schools in this country that can be called schools of shame. Why? Because the budget, the money allocated is not spent, or the absorption rate is not done as expected. Mr. Speaker, I would like to draw your attention to examples in Kilifi County. In Kilifi County, you realize that we have always had the problem of schools, what are called schools of shame, where we still have mud walled and wattle and kids sitting on the ground, and yet basic education is a function of the national government. So, Mr. Speaker, I would urge the Minister and the Cabinet Secretary in charge of education to ensure that there's fair distribution of the funds as in the budget. I realize that the education docket usually has funds that are put in the budget, but it is the decision of the Minister of the PS to decide where the money goes. This time, Mr. Speaker, we would like to see fairness and equity, so that we don't take money where there is already very good development and yet deny areas that are really suffering funds. Mr. Speaker, I would like to add and say this. We have seen money for teacher recruitment in the budget. Now, we would like to see more teachers recruited, especially in areas that are lacking. In the past, we have had teachers recruited in areas that are actually overflowing in teachers, and others have deficits, and still those deficits still continue. Mr. Speaker, I want to point out that my county, where I come from, has a huge deficit on teachers. And as the recruitment comes, I hope it will take care of issues of equity, to say those areas that have not had teacher recruitment to reach the thresholds that are expected are given opportunity to reach those thresholds. So, Mr. Speaker, as TSC gets its money for teacher recruitment, it considers and gives priority to these areas. Mr. Speaker, I want to move in and say that I have seen funds for university education, but a lot of these funds for university education do not reach these universities. And every time universities
Order. Now that you have placed your card, the Honorable Member for Muranga, what is now your point of order? You still insist you have a point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr.
Who is
Speaker,
out of order? Because now we are dealing with Honorable Baya.
Yes, one, I wanted to advise the Honorable Member that only the President has the authority to be heard in silence in this House. And when he was...
Well, are you sure you
yes,
you want to pursue that?
It is actually there.
Now,
Mr. Speaker,
that is no problem.
Mr. Speaker.
No, just before we proceed on that one, you know, as someone had said before that this is a house of debate. Now, can you please specifically tell us which standing order?
I will get it, Mr. Speaker.
It's only
It is there. I'll read for you.
Because I am struggling to pinpoint that specific one.
When we are doing this presidential address, I'll be assisted by Mr. Speaker before I get the standing order. I will open, Mr. Speaker, but in the meantime, Mr. Speaker, allow me kindly to proceed. And I just wanted to address the leader of majority.
No, that's not. That is not possible. What is it? Honorable majority has
Allow
finalized
me,
his debate.
allow me, Mr. Speaker, because he's a leader of majority. He leads majority of us, myself included,
No.
Mr. Speaker. And I would like...
That's not going to be allowed. No,
Mr.
that's not
Speaker,
going to be allowed. It's not going to be allowed.
There is a problem here, Mr. Speaker, and allow me to express myself.
That problem will be resolved in a different fora. Now,
No, Mr. Speaker,
the leader
allow
of
me.
majority has finalized. I thought it was a point of order again. Yeah.
I have already mentioned about him, Mr.
Then
Speaker.
if you are finished, then you
I have not
don't
finished.
raise the one for...
I have not finished, Mr. Speaker. Because as I proceed, Mr. Speaker, I respect my leader.
You see, the
And
issue...
Mr. Speaker, I know he has a small problem.
No, I don't think I'm going to allow that.
Very small, because
No,
he only
I'm
has...
not going to allow that.
He doesn't have girls, Mr. Speaker.
I am not going to...
And that
Those
is
are personal
why...
matters. Let's proceed there, Honorable. Yeah. The issue of whether the leader has daughters or what, I mean, it doesn't... Yeah.
Thank you.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was addressing the issue of university education in this country, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to plead to the Department of Education, especially university education, that when they're dispersing funds, they consider universities that are growing up, they are young universities, that they are able to be given funds. What I have in mind is a university like Pwani University, which is in my constituency, suffers capitation problems. Why? Because there's very little disbursement from the exchequer to give the university an opportunity to grow. They have a good development plan, a good master plan, but you realize that the funds that are coming in, especially the young universities, and capitation. You see very good amounts put in the budget, but the way the money is disbursed to this university is slow in coming, and at the end of the year, only 30% probably of the funds are disbursed to the university. So we would like to see an improvement as we implement this budget. Mr. Speaker, I've looked at the budget, especially on the lands area. Mr. Speaker, I think my time has been, and I would like to ask for more time.
No, I will not allow you more time. Wind up, please.
Okay, so I would like to say this. We would like to see more funds used in the settlement of squatters, an issue which is affecting the areas in Kilifi. We have very many squatters in that area, but this budget does not reflect that. And I hope that as we move forward, we will have more money to actually ensure that squatters are settled. I would like to speak about tourism, Mr. Speaker. In the tourism, you see that there's around 9 billion has been set aside for product development in the budget. But, Mr. Speaker, we have areas that have traditionally been a bastion of tourism in this country, especially Malindi. But Malindi is a dying town right now. And as this town dies, we would like to see the Minister for Tourism giving attention, especially in the marketing of these towns, so that the economy of those areas continue to grow. I would like to finally talk about the fishing docket. I've seen money has been set aside for fisheries. But a lot of this money that's set for fisheries does not develop the sector. We would like to see, Mr. Speaker, that we have more money for fishermen where they are given fishing gear to ensure that they are able to go to fish, get money, and help their families. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support this motion, but I wish I had my time as it was set. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Don't worry, next time you'll have member for you.